Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is staring at their phone, scrolling, not really looking for anything, just scrolling. We do this every single day. We wait in line and scroll, we lie in bed and scroll. Some of us spend hours doing this without even noticing the time slip away. And here's a strange thought. Most of us don't even feel bad about it. We call it relaxing. We call it killing time. But here's the question that changes everything. Did ancient humans, the people who lived thousands and thousands of years before phones, before clocks, before electricity, did they ever kill time like we do? The answer is no, not even a little bit. For almost the entire story of humans on this planet, wasting time wasn't just something people avoided. It was something that could get you or your whole family killed. Let that sink in. Today, wasting an hour means missing an episode of a show. Back then, wasting an hour could mean missing the last hours of daylight to find food, or water, or shelter before the cold and the dark and the predators came out. So what were ancient humans actually doing with every single hour of their day? That question is bigger than you think, and the answer is going to completely flip what you thought you knew about ancient life. For over 50 years, almost everyone believed a story about ancient humans that was completely wrong. Let's go back to the year 1966. A group of scientists who study ancient humans called anthropologists got together for a big meeting called Man the Hunter. One of them was a man named Marshall Solins. Solins stood up and said something that shocked everyone. He said that ancient hunter-gatherers, people who found their food instead of growing it, only had to work about 15 to 20 hours a week to get everything they needed to survive. That's less than 3 hours a day. Solins called them the original affluent society. Affluent means rich, but not rich with money, rich with free time. He said ancient people didn't want much, so a little bit of work was enough to make them happy. He even had a cool nickname for it, the Zen Road to Wealth. Not working more to get more stuff, just wanting less stuff in the first place. For decades, people believed this. It became one of the most famous ideas in all of anthropology. But here's what's fascinating. It wasn't true, not even close. Solins forgot to count almost half of the work ancient humans actually did. In the year 2000, a scientist named David Kaplan looked closer at Solins' numbers, and he found a big problem. Solins had only counted the time people spent actually out hunting or picking food. That's it. He didn't count anything that happened after they got home. Think about it like this. Imagine your parents only counted cooking dinner as the time spent standing at the stove, but not the trip to the grocery store, not washing the dishes, not chopping the vegetables. That would make dinner look a lot faster than it really is. That's exactly what Solins did. When Kaplan added up all the work, not just hunting and gathering, but cracking nuts, hauling water, fixing tools, curing animal skins, and hauling firewood, the real number came out very differently. The Dobe, Kung people of the Kalahari Desert, the same group Solins had studied, were actually working over 40 hours a week. Some hunter-gatherer groups, like the Ache people of Paraguay, worked closer to 60 hours a week. That's a full-time job. Or more. So why did people believe the 15-hour myth for so long? Because nobody was watching what happened back at camp. And here's where it gets surprising. What happened back at camp was some of the hardest work of all. Every single thing your ancestors owned or ate cost them hours of brutal work before they could even use it. Let's follow one ancient family through a single day. The sun comes up. There is no snooze button. There is no breakfast waiting in the fridge. A mother picks up her digging stick and walks. Not a short walk, sometimes up to 10 kilometers, roughly the distance of walking from one side of a big city to the other, just to find deep buried roots and plants. Then she has to walk all the way back carrying them. Meanwhile, some of the men go hunting. This is not like hunting in a movie. Ancient humans were incredible endurance runners. They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes running it down until the animal literally overheated and collapsed. This is called persistence hunting, and it actually worked about 80% of the time. But here's the catch. Even when the hunt worked, the job wasn't over. Someone now had to carry a 45-kilogram animal about the weight of a large dog, times 3 on their back, for hours, over rough ground, just to get it home. And once you're home, the real work begins. Water doesn't come from a tap. Someone has to carry it sometimes over 7 liters a day, in pouches made from animal skin, because pottery and metal buckets didn't exist yet for most of human history. Fire doesn't start with a match. Someone has to collect wood or dried animal dung every single day because fires burn through fuel fast. And food? Raw food is often not something you can just eat. Take nuts from the Kalahari Desert. Cracking enough of them to actually feed a family took about 8 hours of work every single week. Or take acorns eaten by ancient people in California. Acorns are poisonous if you eat them raw. They're full of a bitter chemical that hurts your body. So people had to dry them, crack them, grind them into flour using heavy stone tools, and then rinse that flour again and again and again in water for days just to wash the poison out. Only then, after all of that, could anyone actually eat. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Even the tools people used to do all this work took enormous amounts of time to make. A single stone tool could take longer to make than an entire school week. Imagine you need a sharp stone tool to cut meat or scrape a hide. You can't just grab any rock. Ancient toolmakers had to find just the right kind of stone like flint or a black volcanic glass called obsidian, sometimes traveling over 100 kilometers to find the best pieces, because a sharper tool meant less wasted time later. Then, to make that stone even easier to shape, some groups would heat it in a fire pit for up to 8 hours, at just the right temperature before they could even start carving it. And carving a simple stone tool was nothing compared to making a polished stone axe. Scientists who tried to recreate one of these axes using ancient methods found that just drilling one hole through the stone to attach a wooden handle could take over 2,500 hours. That's more hours than an entire school year. Why would anyone spend that much time on one tool? Because that axe would last for years. It could be sharpened again and again. It wouldn't shatter like a quick flint tool might. Ancient humans weren't lazy or careless. They were doing math in their heads before math even existed. They were asking, is this worth my time? And that question, is this worth my time, turns out to be the secret hiding behind almost everything ancient humans did. Ancient humans were solving a math problem every single day, and getting it wrong could mean starving. Scientists have a name for this secret math: optimal foraging theory. Here's the simple version. Every time your ancestors saw a plant, an animal, or any kind of food, their brain was silently doing a calculation. How much energy will I get from this? And how much energy and time will it cost me to get it? If a food gave a lot of energy and didn't take long to catch or gather, like a big, juicy animal that was easy to find, that food was worth chasing every time. But if a food gave very little energy and took forever to prepare, like tiny seeds or bitter acorns, ancient humans would usually skip it completely, unless the good stuff ran out. Here's the wild part. When big, easy food became rare, ancient people's brains would automatically switch strategies. They'd start eating the harder, more annoying foods because now it was worth the extra effort. It's the same reason you might grab a cookie from the counter without a second thought, but you wouldn't bother making a whole complicated recipe from scratch unless you were really, really hungry and there was nothing easier around. Your ancestors were doing this every day with their actual survival on the line. Get the math wrong too many times. And it wasn't just a bad day. It was a life-threatening one, but surviving wasn't something one person could do alone. And that leads to one of the most important discoveries in this whole story: sharing food. Sharing food wasn't just a nice thing to do. It was one of the smartest survival tricks humans ever invented. Here's a surprising fact. Hunting big animals almost always failed. Scientists studying the Hadza people of Tanzania found that a hunter's chance of successfully killing a big animal on any single day was about 3%. That means 97 times out of 100, a hunter came home with nothing. So how did anyone survive on meat at all? The answer is sharing. When one hunter succeeded, the meat wasn't just for his family. It was shared across the whole camp. Today, he gives food to you. Next week, when he fails and you succeed, you give food to him. It was like a savings account, except instead of money, people were storing favors and trust inside each other. But here's what's fascinating. This only worked if everyone played fair. People who refused to share or who avoided doing their part of the work weren't just seen as rude. In the harshest cases, they could be pushed out of the group entirely, which, in a world with predators and no other backup plan, could be a death sentence. This wasn't just true for grown-ups hunting. It was true for raising kids too. Human babies are unusually helpless for a very long time. A mother alone could not carry a baby, gather food, and keep everyone safe all by herself. So other people stepped in: fathers, grandmothers, older kids, and even friends to help carry and care for babies. Scientists studying a group called the Aka found that when grandmothers helped with childcare, mothers saved the same amount of energy as walking several extra kilometers. That saved energy let mothers have healthier babies sooner and more often. Working together wasn't just nice. It was one of the reasons humans survived at all. But if life was this much nonstop work, why do we have cave paintings? Why do we have music? Why do we have stories? That question is about to flip everything you've heard so far upside down. Telling stories. Telling stories around a fire? wasn't wasting time. It might be one of the smartest survival tools humans ever created. If every hour mattered this much, why would ancient people spend time singing, dancing, painting, or telling stories? In 2017, a scientist named Daniel Smith studied a hunter-gatherer group in the Philippines called the Agta. He looked at 89 of their traditional stories. Here's what he found. 70% of those stories weren't just fun. They were secretly teaching lessons about sharing, fairness, and getting along. For example, the Agta tell a story about the sun and the moon arguing over who gets to light up the sky. In the end, they agree to share the job. One lights the day, one lights the night. It's a fun story, but it's also secretly teaching a lesson about sharing and fairness. Smith didn't stop there. He ran experiments with almost 300 hunter-gatherers to test if these stories actually changed behavior. They did. Camps with better storytellers cooperated more and shared more. And here's the wildest part. Skilled storytellers were more likely to be chosen as friends and partners. And on average, they had more children who survived than people who weren't good storytellers. Telling a good story wasn't just fun. It made you more valuable to your group. It helped everyone survive. The same goes for cave paintings. Some of them, like the ones at Lascaux in France, weren't just pretty pictures. They may have worked like ancient textbooks, teaching young hunters what animals looked like and how they moved. Even dancing had a job to do. Some groups had special nighttime dances that helped everyone bond, settle arguments, and feel like one team, right before facing something dangerous, like a hunt. So, leisure for ancient humans wasn't really leisure at all. It was one more survival tool. Just one that used stories and rhythm instead of spears and digging sticks. Which brings us to the biggest myth of all. One almost everyone believes even today. Farming. Farming did not make life easier. It made it harder. And there was no going back. Most people believe farming was the moment humans finally caught a break. Grow your own food, stop chasing animals, relax a little. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Farming made life worse for a very long time. When ancient people switched from hunting and gathering to farming, they traded a varied diet full of different plants and animals for endless, repetitive work, plowing fields, pulling weeds, digging water channels, and taking care of animals, day after day, year after year. And it shows up in their bones. Scientists studying skeletons from this time found that early farmers were shorter than hunter-gatherers before them, a sign they weren't getting enough good food as kids. Their teeth had way more cavities because farming diets were full of soft, starchy grains instead of tougher wild food. And they got sick more often because farming meant living close together in crowded villages, which let diseases spread easily. So if farming was worse, why didn't people just go back to hunting and gathering? Here's the trap. Grain, like wheat or rice, can be mashed into soft, mushy food for babies. That meant mothers could stop breastfeeding earlier than before, and when that happens, something in a mother's body changes. She becomes able to have another baby sooner. More babies sooner over and over meant villages grew fast. Really fast. But now there were too many people to feed by just gathering wild plants nearby. The only way to feed everyone was to farm even more. It's like a trap that clicks shut behind you. Once you're in, you can't easily get out. You have to keep farming harder and harder just to keep everyone fed. That single-choice softer baby food quietly changed the entire future of the human species. But even while this was happening, some ancient people were building things so incredible, so advanced that scientists are still amazed by them today. And some of the most jaw-dropping ones are sitting quietly, right here in the United States. Some of the oldest man-made structures on Earth are not in Egypt. They're in Louisiana, and they were built by people who didn't even farm yet. On a college campus in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, there are two grassy hills. Students walk past them every day. Some even sit on them to watch football games. Most people have no idea what they're actually looking at. These are the LSU campus mounds, and new science shows something incredible. A scientist named Brooks Elwood studied these mounds using advanced tools that can measure tiny magnetic changes in the dirt. What he found rewrote the history books. One of these mounds started being built about 11,000 years ago. That makes it older than the Egyptian pyramids. Older than Stonehenge. It's the oldest known man-made structure in the entire Americas. And here's the part that gives scientists chills. The top edges of both mounds line up perfectly, with the direction a bright star called Arcturus rose in the sky, exactly 6,000 years ago. That means the people who built these mounds were tracking the stars on purpose and building that knowledge directly into the ground beneath their feet. Even more amazing? For about 1,000 years, building on this site completely stopped. Scientists found this pause lines up exactly with a sudden global cooling event. When the climate got harsh and unpredictable, the builders didn't disappear, they simply had to focus on survival first. Then, Once the weather calmed down, they came right back and kept building. And these mound builders weren't farmers yet. They were hunter-gatherers, the same kind of people some once assumed were too busy just surviving to build anything at all. They weren't done either. Not far away is a site called Watson Break 11 Mounds, connected together, forming a giant oval bigger than several football fields. Scientists found this site was built in bursts, matching times when the weather turned wild and unpredictable due to shifting ocean and wind patterns. The mounds may have worked like a safe home base during hard times, a flood-proof shelter and meeting place, built entirely without farming or writing. And then there's Poverty Point, an ancient site so massive it's hard to believe it was built entirely by hand. Builders moved over 53 million cubic feet of dirt using small woven baskets, one load at a time. That adds up to about 15.5 million individual basket trips. These same people traded with groups living hundreds of miles away, bringing in copper from the Great Lakes and stone from mountains far to the east. All without farming, all without wheels, all without metal tools. These weren't simple people barely scraping by. They were engineers, astronomers, planners across generations, and it turns out they never had a spare moment to waste either. Let's go back to the question we asked at the beginning. Did ancient humans ever waste time the way we do? Now you know the real answer. They didn't get 15 hours of easy living like Solons first believed. But they also weren't just miserable and starving every second, like some people used to imagine. The truth is something much more interesting. Every single hour of an ancient person's day had a purpose. Walking for food, carrying water, fixing tools, raising kids together, even telling stories and dancing had a job to do, holding the whole group together so everyone could survive. Nothing was random. Nothing was truly wasted. Every choice was, in its own way, keeping someone alive. And here's the part that should make you think. Today we've built machines, computers, and phones to save us time. We don't have to hunt. We don't have to carry water for hours. We don't have to grind poison out of nuts just to eat dinner. We saved all that time. So, what did we do with it? A lot of us spend it sitting still, staring at screens, scrolling without really thinking about it. The exact same wasting time we started this story with. Your ancestors' bodies and brains were built over hundreds of thousands of years for movement, for teamwork, for stories told out loud. We gained comfort. We gained safety. We gained more free hours than any humans in history. But maybe in trading away all that hard work, we also traded away something we didn't know we needed: the constant movement, the tight-knit teamwork, the shared stories that once held every human group together. So here's the question worth sitting with, long after this video ends. If ancient humans, with almost nothing, never wasted a single hour, why do so many of us, with everything, still feel like we're wasting all of ours?